This week's episode of Wine Wars is sponsored by Amazon. Wine Wars is now an affiliate of Amazon, meaning if you shop on Amazon, you can help support the show by going to winewarspodcast.com/support, and on the bottom of the page is a hyperlink to Amazon. Any purchases you make after shopping through that hyperlink help support the show because Amazon will give us a small portion of the purchase that you make at no additional cost to yourself. Again, go to winewarspodcast.com/support, click through the Amazon hyperlink, much appreciated. Wine Wars is also sponsored by Winc. Winc is a monthly wine club specifically catered to your palate. Go to trywinc.com/winewars for free shipping and $20 off your first purchase from Winc. By going to trywinc.com/winewars, you will answer a questionnaire that helps Winc identify your specific wine preferences. Then by rating and reviewing the wines that you've had, Winc can then zero in on your favorite wines. Again, that is trywinc.com/winewars, $20 off your first purchase and free shipping. Wine Wars is also sponsored by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/winewars for a free audiobook and 30-day free trial of Audible. With over 10,000 titles to choose from, Audible has absolutely anything you may want to listen to. Again, that's audibletrial.com/winewars for a free audiobook and 30-day free trial of Audible. Enjoy the show.
Wine Wars, the show with four friends who love three things: wine and Star Wars.
Welcome to Wine Wars. You're joining us as we sniff, sip, and talk about wine live from the Refuge Lounge in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Woo!
Indeed. Our first live event ever. Thank you, Refuge Lounge, for having us. With me, as always, is Jason.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing, Jason?
I'm fabulous.
This
is our first ever in front of people podcast, so it's a little it's different and fun.
Yeah. Joining us, the real host of the wine tasting this evening is Helena. What is your title here at the Refuge Lounge?
I'm the wine buyer here at the Refuge Lounge.
Wine buyer, and you put this tasting together for us today?
I did, yeah.
And
a few of my favorites.
A few of your favorites, yeah. We saw the list ahead of time, and Jason and I were both talking about it and excited about it on the ride up. So, really looking forward to tasting it. So, and pouring the wines for us today, Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we jump into the wines that you pulled together, Helena, can you tell us a little bit of your background of how you got into the wine business?
Well, I guess I had my wine moment at about 15 years ago, and I had just picked up a magazine, waiting in an office, and I started reading about wine, and I got very intrigued. And fast forward many years later, I had bartended for a long time, and then once I had started to learn more about wine, started to gear towards that, was lucky enough to move here to Appleton and start working in a restaurant that had a wonderful wine program. Learned a lot throughout those years, and just it was one of those things that I never got tired of learning about. And so there's always something
Infinite
new.
amount of knowledge
Yes,
in the wine
yes.
world, absolutely.
There's no finishing. There's no getting over the
Right.
finish line here.
The only thing to just continually keep my interest ever was that. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you chose a very cool lineup for us today. We're starting out with some white wines. Tell us a bit about the first one, and I'm actually kind of curious of why you picked the wines you did. So please talk a little bit about the first wine you poured for us.
So the first, I chose this Vouvray. It's a 2011 demi-sec Vouvray. I think that I wanted to talk about it because it's a Chenin Blanc, and that's a grape that people are beginning to become familiar with. But with French wines, it doesn't always say what it is on the label, right? So to know that it's a Chenin Blanc, you have to know about French wines,
Right.
I think it's interesting also that the Chenin Blanc grape, Jonathan and I were having this conversation earlier, that it's so acidic that depending on the climate, whether it be a warmer year or a cooler year, that's how they decide then if it's going to be a demi-sec or a more drier wine. So again, just because you think you know what Vouvray, then you also then have to know the year and how the climate worked out that year to know what to expect in that wine.
And you said a fun wine nerd word in there, demi-sec. So Vouvray is also a very versatile style,
Yes.
right? Because of that. And you picked, so this one's kind of off dry?
Yes.
Yeah, it can go way dry. It can go
Yeah.
pretty sweet as well.
Yes. And it's also one of the few whites that ages well, which I think is special. You know, I think we get used.
Saw that you can get up to 10 years
Yeah.
out of a white.
Some of them up to 40.
Whoa.
Yes. Yeah.
That's almost as old as you,
That's
Jason.
almost as old as me. Not yet.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Yeah. And judging by the color of this, I'm guessing they use oak in the production as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, that's another wine myth that white wines never use oak and don't age well. And right off the bat, you're hitting us with something that kind of shows you the really...
Does both.
Yeah, absolutely can do both and how versatile wine can be. So,
I always love Chenin Blancs. It's like a go-to white for me. This is a great one.
yeah. And we should say, audience members, if you do have any questions at any point in time, feel free to ask, and we will do our best to answer them. So, this is really nice. It's kind of, like you said, off-dry. I'm terrible with my tasting descriptions, but it's kind of like white peach, apricot in that vein.
Apple juice.
So, apple
Honey
juice.
apple juice,
I just-
yes.
Apple juice for sure.
It's
So
nice.
if-
Perfect for a day like today. It's 81 degrees outside, everybody. In Wisconsin, we get like 6 of them. So for all of you who are actually here, thank you.
Staying indoors drinking with us.
So I missed the vintage. This is 2011.
So yeah, you already got 7
2011.
years on it.
Yeah.
And it's
And it's drinking great.
price range, $20 range. Usually
$20
for a
range.
French white is
Yes.
pretty safe.
Yes, it's very, for the product that you're getting, a $20 bottle is,
Yeah.
it's a great deal.
And if someone's new to the wine world and they want to kind of get into French wine, can be very overwhelming.
Yes.
So as you said, the key things to know with Vouvray is that it's the Chenin Blanc grape. So all Vouvrays are Chenin Blancs, but not all Chenin Blancs are Vouvray.
Correct.
So if I were new to the wine world and I wanted to get in Vouvray, is there anything you would recommend that I look for as like an entry point into this style of wine?
I do think that the demi-secs are, if you're not used to white wine or dry white wines, demi-sec is a good segue into getting used to drier flavors. Yeah.
Did you mention geographically where in France?
The Loire.
Loire. Cool.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, I'd want to drink. This is. I know we got to move on to
so-
other
We'll have
wines,
to
but I
move
got
on.
to sit and
Did
drink
we
this.
say part of our evening here tonight is Bascom Hill is going to be playing, and I always envisioned a band tasting where we would talk about wines, and then as people sip the wines, we would play a song. Well, this song it invokes the cassis, and
That would be fun. I like that
but
idea.
that's not what we pulled off here today.
Perhaps next time.
So
You wanna
my
continue?
point there is we're going to be playing a show, so we have to make sure that our fingers still operate, and we have to drink less than
Yeah.
we typically would on this podcast.
It's maybe the first time we've ever dumped wine on a podcast.
On a podcast.
But,
We're not dumpers.
No.
Usually aren't dumpers. Cool. Great
I
bottle,
am not
$20,
either.
perfect for summer. Jonathan, any thoughts
Excellent.
from your end of the table on this?
Patio.
Oh, delicious. I'm kind of coming off of what I think we called a root day a couple days ago.
Yes.
Which is
the root day.
sort of in the, I don't know what you call it, biodynamic, biorhythmic sort of lunar things.
Where your tasting's kind of
because
off.
of the
Everything-
solstice.
Which also makes,
Yeah.
which
we
makes so
did
much
tasting
sense.
2 days ago, and everything either tasted like mushrooms or it tasted like mushrooms and earth, and that was just there was nothing I could do to
Nothing you
get
could do
past
with it?
that.
Interesting.
Was there
So-
anything that stood out from that world and that experiment of biodynamic growing?
Well, I don't know that we were even tasting any wines that were expressly biodynamically made. We were just sort of describing my condition as
Actually, the
possibly
quality is.
deriving from some sort of lunar cycle.
The last one we're
Right.
going to drink is actually biodynamic.
Quale is, oh, good. And that was the funkiest one on my palate.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Right. That's why I'm excited for you
This
to
has such
have it
bracing
this time.
acidity. It's just drinking clean and delicious. So
Yeah.
I'm sad to dump it. I do not want to dump it, but I must.
We have more.
So where are we
There'll
headed
be
next?
more. Next to Italy.
Italy.
We're going to drink the Falanghiana from Mastroberardino.
So again, this is
Again, same price range, about $20 bottle. But going into the wonderful world of Italian whites. It's vast and so different. Italian whites, they don't use oak. It's stainless steel or cement, the big cement vats.
This is exactly what you'd
But-
expect. Really, like fresh and clean.
Yeah, fresh, clean, acidic. You
Yeah.
want you want food, and has that
Yeah.
pear and floral
Yeah.
on the nose.
and it does
Okay.
have a little bit of minerality to it, a little slate. It kind of reminds me of like a white Burgundy, a
Oh,
little bit,
Yep.
in that freshness, the crisp green apple type flavors.
Got a little banana peel, ripe banana peel. This producer is just east. Is that right? Yeah, east of Naples.
Campagna.
Yeah, and they have vineyards like in Pompeii, and it would be interesting to taste some of those wines from the volcanic soil
They
and
have it.
ash.
Right. Yep. They have vineyards all over, and then they have the secret garden, if you will, the towers where only the last
Yeah.
varietal is planted, and they do a lot of really interesting things.
And it's a old producer. They're like
Very old.
1878, I think is. they've
So older than
it's
you.
like
Well-
I'm older than 40. Yeah.
And it's gone through generations
Yeah.
and brothers, and
And luckily
With-
they saved this varietal.
they saved many varietals, and through all the turmoil of family business, and I think they had their fair share of.
Cheers, y'all. Did everybody get everybody's excellent.
Can you actually give us a little bit more background? So this is a grape variety that I had not really heard too much before, Falanghiana. And if you look at it,
Falanghiana. Yeah. So oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I was going to say, looking at it, it's kind of an overwhelming label on there. It's a bunch of foreign language that you might not know how to
funny word.
pronounce. So can you break this down a little bit behind a little history of the grape itself?
So it was named that way because it needs to grow up the stakes, and Falgae.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure on the
It means
pronunciation of that.
it's a stake.
It means a stake.
Yeah.
And so the way that those vines
Grow
grow,
up it.
that's where the name came from.
Interesting.
Jonathan, how's your Italian wine knowledge?
I'm learning, but I'm at ground zero.
Italian is a super intimidating wine region because it's hard to pronounce it. And everything about it is foreign, so it can be super intimidating. But I personally like Italian wines are they're totally my jam. Like I love
They're my
Italian
jam
wines.
as well. And I'm intimidated by French wine.
Yeah.
I know Italian wine very well. Maybe I took Latin, so maybe that helps
Oh,
with the
for sure.
pronunciations. But when it comes to French wines, I mean, I'm
It's
lost with pronunciation.
super intimidating
It's very
in
intimidating.
French.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
So
where
I
wine
can-
comes from, so it's even more intimidating because they have a whole culture behind it.
Yep.
Yeah.
At least this tells us what grape we're drinking.
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the producer's name on this again?
Mastroberardino.
Yeah. And so they're kind of known for the Falanghiana grape. That's their primary,
Well, I don't know if that's what they're necessarily known for. They're just known for obscure grapes. They're taking a lot of different rare varieties and isolating them, whereas a lot of other producers are using them to blend because they're less familiar. But Mastroberardino is isolating that varietal, showcasing it.
But kind of going back to part of the reason you got into wine is that, the infinite knowledge that there is with wine is that there's more than just Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc for white wines, right?
Right.
And here we have two prime examples of lesser known grapes that produce wines that are, and we're going to have a third in a second, two lesser known grapes that produce just top quality wine in a single varietal that is a little out of the norm. And which is kind of unfortunate, I think, that people really limit themselves to, so some people I only drink Bordeaux.
I know
Yep.
Pinot Gris.
Yep, that's all they drink, and there's limitless options out there in the world, and you can only go around this rock once, drink a bunch of different wines, and there's no reason to silo yourself into one specific grape.
Absolutely.
The weird thing for me is like, especially as 10 years ago when I just started drinking wine, I didn't know the basics, and you don't know even what a Cab Sav is supposed to taste like. So drinking a ton of one thing, and then okay, I have a baseline now, but it takes 50 cases of wine to have that baseline.
It's a rough road.
Yeah,
It's so hard. It's the sacrifices that we have to make.
Yeah.
Every journey starts with a single step. So speaking of journey, should we journey on to the next bottle here? So I should, disclaimer coming up, I did not influence their choice of this next wine, nor did Jason, because we have had Molly Meeker on the show before. So this next bottle is I actually have one of these in my basement right now. My wife and I just took a trip out to Sonoma, and we stopped at the Meeker tasting room, which is great. It's in an old converted bank vault. So their storage room is an old bank vault. You have to spin the giant wheel. And this is one of the bottles that I purchased to bring back. So
spoiler alert: we're going to be drinking 2 Meeker wines on this podcast.
2. Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Molly, and again, with loving Italian wines, they have that mindset of a balanced, good acidity wines, and I just loved everything that they did. But this Verdelho just steals the show.
Wow.
Have you had that?
No, this is my. So I have a bunch of Meeker wine in my cellar, and I have drank it for many years. This might be the first white I've ever actually had. It's gorgeous.
And this is even lighter, even crisper. So I'm assuming you purposely did that in the tasting.
Yes. I feel like with all of that passion fruit and all that guava, I mean, I almost wanted to wait till the very end because it's such a showstopper, but you can't surpass that tropical.
Super tropical.
Yeah.
That's a fun wine.
Don't even want to talk, just want to drink.
I know. No talking. Whenever I listen to podcasts about wine, I am generally in the car just driving and salivating. I gotta stop for a minute here. And
somewhere, anywhere, get a glass. Yeah. And again, this is kind of a more obscure grape. Can you give us a little
Verdelho.
history? Yeah.
Yeah, Verdelho, not to be confused with Verdelho.
Correct.
The Verdelho, they use it a lot in the Douro Valley. It's a Portuguese grape. And Portuguese wine is becoming very popular.
Yeah.
If you've noticed, lots of different Portuguese reds and up and coming. But this Verdelho, then they use it in Madeira. The libation that their forefathers drank while they signed the Declaration. So it's a grape that's been around for a really long time. But again, you don't see it showcased on its own.
Usually in a blend.
Certainly not from California.
Right.
I'm not going to dump this one.
Nope.
They're all good. This is as though those 2 other wines had a baby.
Good. Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
That's what I was going for.
So being from California, this one's a little more high alcohol than the other 2. So be careful, Jason. You have a gig.
I can still feel my fingers. We're fine.
You can feel my fingers.
Beautiful.
I'm curious on, so your why did you pick these 3 whites for the tasting today?
They're also very different. And yeah, I don't know. That's what I gravitated towards.
It wasn't that
Followed my
one
instinct.
wine rep came in and gave you those wines.
No, definitely not. No. And I mean, as much as you like to try to keep things fair, it just doesn't always work out that way. Because you like what you like.
Yeah, and this is something, in terms of a wine tasting, this is a great arrangement. This is why, if you enjoy wine, you should go to tastings as often as you can. Quite often they're free or a small charge, and you get to try something that you normally just would never try.
Right.
And if you have someone put it together who really knows what they're doing, like yourself, you get, hey, these are 3 grapes that I've never had before: Chenin Blanc, Falanghiana, and Verdelho. And it's like, wow, a whole new world just opened up.
And the best thing you can do is find something that you liked in the moment and take it home.
Yep.
See if you still like it at home.
Take 2 home, because you're going to drink that one right away.
Yep.
Right.
And you want to store another. So
Store another. And with food, and depending on what you're doing that day. And I mean,
Drinking?
what you're eating and what if you just cut the grass, I'm sure this would taste.
Awesome.
That's what I was thinking. Unreal.
speaking of grass, when I was smelling as you said that, and it's kind of like a fresh cut grass, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
This is a very aromatic grape.
yeah. So if you're a fan of Sauv Blanc, I think this
Yes.
would be right up your alley.
Absolutely.
And something a little out of the norm of the Sauv Blanc, but it's definitely in that world.
It's in that spectrum.
It's great.
Are these potential to age? It seems pretty high acid. Seems like it would hold its own.
That's a good question. My assumption would be yes, seeing as how it makes up Madeiras and it makes up those other fortified wines.
Should we text Molly?
So I think
Tex Molly, yeah.
Tex Molly. She was really nice and actually signed some of the bottles that we have on our shelf, and because we have the Cab Franc and the.
I travel a lot, and I am always. She does a pretty phenomenal job of getting her wines placed in the world. Like I was in Key West, and they were filled up with Meeker wines, and like just everywhere I go, she's really done a bang up job of distributing her wine.
She's a force of nature.
Yeah,
She is.
Yeah.
She's
She
great.
crushes it, yeah. Well, come back in 10 years. We'll taste it again, see how it aged.
Sounds
I'm
good.
There we go.
So put us on the books for the Refuge Lounge.
2028.
28.
Welcome to Bascom Hills Podcast.
Are we starting with the Meeker on the reds,
Oh.
or is
Diving
that
right
the
in?
end?
Yes, we're gonna dive right.
Awesome. Let's do it.
I'm in.
So if I could ask a question of you, Helena, can you tell us a little bit about the Refuge Lounge? So do you do tastings every week? How often are tastings done here?
Yes, we have been doing. We try to do tastings every week.
Thank you.
And in the winter, Saturdays we. Thank you. Sorry. We've played around with the certain times. We have a yoga instructor that she teaches a yoga class and then does a tasting. That's always the last Saturday of every month.
You do yoga tasting.
We do yoga
here in the
lounge.
Oh, cool.
Yep, and then we do a tasting right after that.
I like to drink before I do yoga.
Loosens you up a little.
Before, during, and after.
During, and then after.
And you can see how your balance changes.
Yes.
It makes
Find
it
your
harder
center.
throughout.
Find your center.
Challenging yourself. Find your zen.
Now this is killer.
So we went through. With it being summer here,
For once.
a lot for once, right? And so people take advantage of that. They go away on weekends and such. So it's been slower on Saturdays, to say the least. So we haven't been doing tastings every single Saturday. But in the winter, we were.
The roller coaster by Meeker has been my standby Tuesday slammer wine for generations. And
The blend is always changing.
blend is always changing.
Jonathan has the bottle, but
So the story that she told me was basically it's like wine Wapatui. All
Yes.
of the
Yep.
amazing wines that they make throughout the year. After they're done, they take the rest of it and blend it and find a cool balance. And so it's basically a giant blend of all their great wine. And it's always of this caliber.
this is my first time. Well, not the first time tasting it, but the first time being aware of the roller coaster blend. And I'm so glad I found it because I love, like I said, when we talked about it, I love high acidity in a red wine.
Which is a great counterbalance because California is high alcohol, so you need that to help balance that out. And it's there's probably new oak on this, but it's just a great addition to the mix of the flavors here. That just really this is prime California wine to me when I drink this.
It's totally indicative of California wine, and it's not overly jammy. This might be like
A little ashy.
yeah.
So is this a 2016 or 17 release? What year
I
is this
believe
from?
it's a 17.
17.
Really?
He comes-
Yeah.
I
Hey,
believe
Jonathan,
so.
what year's on this bottle?
1831.
Dramatic pause.
Yeah, there is a lot of text. They just redesigned the bottle, so there's much more going on there.
4 paragraphs on the back of the bottle. That's okay. We'll check up later.
We'll catch back up with you.
And what is the price point on this?
15.
$15?
Yeah.
American dollars.
Yeah. Very affordable.
Very affordable.
Absolutely.
Hence my
worth it.
Tuesday night everyday drinking. wine.
Everyday drinking. Mm-hmm.
I was telling somebody earlier on this podcast, we kind of tried to be super accessible up front and always have, get to the meat of like what is really accessible in terms of,
Yep.
grocery store wine and things that are going to be widely available. And as time has gone on, we've kind of, you get into one grape and then every bottle here is $50, and everything we have here today, surprisingly, all the whites are more expensive, and all the reds are under $15, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that
3 times that cannot been a vintage.
is another
I
reason
think
why
that there
I
might be a
chose
reason there's
those.
not a vintage, because I think that the
Oh.
blends over year are
think that you're
not
right. I think
necessarily all
Okay.
of the same vintage.
So it's actually a non-vintage
It's-
red blend.
Yeah.
It's
I do-
Cuvee.
yes.
Yeah.
Cuvee. Yeah, so we got Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Syrah, Zinfandel,
now that you
Syrah,
mention
Petit Verdot, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Barbera, awesome. Oh, I have a bottle of Barbera of theirs, and we have to drink on the show soon. And Grenache and Carignan. Crazy. That's a great overview.
I think that's
of
all the
multiple-
grapes.
Yeah. No more
That's
grapes. We'll take one of each grape and just toss it together.
Yeah, that's fun.
And Meeker is just Sonoma. Northern Sonoma is where their headquarters are at.
Healdsburg.
We have a patron here who she needs some wine. You can
wine.
tell.
Today's wine.
Save water, drink
Save
more
water,
wine.
drink more wine.
You got it.
I'm very well. How are you? Better as soon as you give me wine.
Is your hair purple and green?
No, it's blue and green.
Blue and green. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Astroturf.
Oh my God! I can't go anywhere.
You know what's funny about this
All right,
wine
so
too?
what am I drinking here?
This is a wine.
I know that. Unfortunately, yeah, it's a red wine, but
You're drinking a Meeker roller coaster.
It's a blend of every red grape there is.
You know what's funny about this? It's this wine has the orange ring, which if I was blind tasting, I would be like, this is a way older wine than
Yeah, it's not very inky,
yeah.
and it does smell almost a little oxidized on the nose. Like it does. It could be like they might have a year of 11 blown in here that
Yeah,
they may have left over.
I would be totally tricked with this wine. This is the first wine we get to the backup bottle. That means we have more patrons, more live listeners.
More drinking.
It's really getting It's getting ruckus in here. Charles took off his shirt.
All right.
Moving
cool.
on.
So where are we headed next?
Moving on.
Carignan. So
This one was the one I was most interested in because I don't think I've had much Carignan in my life.
That's a shame.
well, and not. Yeah, the single varietal. You
don't
don't
see
see
it.
that. And earlier we talked about French wines being intimidating, not really knowing how to read the bottle. But as you can see with this bottle, they have definitely changed it more towards the American
Oh yeah.
eye. They've labeled the Carignan on there, so you know what varietal. Not that really helps many people because they don't really know that varietal. But you can see where they're going with the labels, and I respect that. They're trying to appeal to the American market.
It definitely looks like a wine packaged for us.
Yes.
And this is a lot more jammy than the last wine. Brighter.
Way more jammy.
Yeah.
Just
And
on the nose, in fact.
We're kind of, well, you'll see when we get
We'll
to the
see.
other one. We'll see. You'll see. You'll see.
A little foreshadowing there.
Poor Jonathan is doing triple duty. He's like running around, pouring wine, coming in with a quick quip. Okay, I gotta go again.
So Carignan,
Carignan.
French, or Spanish grape.
Spanish
originally,
grape originally.
but known in France.
And known in France.
Yeah.
It's a Languedoc-Roussillon,
Southern France. Yep.
southern France, and it's more. I think it's more generally grown in Rousson. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
I think you are.
Yep. But this really interesting. The Spanish version is Mizuelo, I believe. It's such an interesting kind of. I almost would say Syrah-esque,
I would say that too.
I would say that.
right?
High tannin, high alcohol, very inky. I would have definitely said Syrah if somebody just shoved this in my face.
Right. But it's more seems smoother than a lot of the Syrahs can be. So
Languedoc and Rousson is the most heavily planted grape region in the planet, right?
definitely France.
Is that right?
It's the largest producing region in France for sure. Might be. I'm not sure about through the whole globe. Oh, we got wine down.
Wine down. Wine down.
Alcohol
Wine down.
Cascaded off the base too.
Alcohol abuse.
It's one of those situations you need the pencil shavings, like in school.
Oh, to sop it up.
Not go there.
I always sawdust, pencil shavings. Yeah.
That was delicious. The stuff they open up that big
Yeah.
door and it would like.
Just absorb all the fun.
So is Carignan a grape that you often gravitate towards? Or
No, I had never. This was my first experience just having it on its own, and I was impressed. So I wanted to.
tell everyone
Showcase
about
I
it.
wanted
it.
to tell everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had it by itself.
Oh, really?
Have you, gentlemen?
Yeah. I used to live out in the Bay Area. We'd go up to wine country all the time, and I think, if I remember right, Buena Vista, which is one of the higher volume, sort of tourist-centric wineries, they got into this thing a couple of years ago where they got really silly and creative and experimental with single varietal stuff. So all these grapes that would usually be like door number 3 or 4 in
Yeah.
a blend, they were featuring as 100% varietal. So yeah, we saw a few out in California.
Yeah. Is this indicative of what you would expect?
I actually didn't even drink it yet. Yeah, talk amongst yourselves.
Wait,
Stand by.
hold on.
Just a little.
The south of France, by the way, seems like I need to go here.
Oh yeah.
This region specifically sounds like a fun place to go.
Yeah, Languedoc is one of the cheaper regions to drink from.
Perfect. Speaking to my wallet.
Yeah.
It's as far south as you can go in France. Obviously Bordeaux, Burgundy are the top. Champagne, that's going to be your top 3, right? So there's lots of fun, smaller, lesser-known regions in France that are far more affordable. And if you go visit, you're not going to have as many tourists.
How far is this from Châteauneuf-du-Pape?
Just south, maybe 50 miles.
Sweet,
too
I'm
far.
going.
Yeah, we do need to make a trip to Châteauneuf-du-Pape. That place is gorgeous. So what was the verdict?
Well, I don't know that I would have said this is 100% Carignan in a blind taste. I'm not quite to that level, but I love it, and I'm not confused or put off by how it tastes relative to other Carignans I've had. It's got that really nice, just like a little inkiness, a lot of red fruit, almost a spice, like kind of cedar, like you said, pencil shaving. When I spilled wine all over Candace's hands and the floor before, it's just got this really delicate spice and red fruit, great texture. I like this one a lot. Yeah,
It's funny, now that you say pencil shavings, that's all I smell. Come on.
pretty tasty.
Yeah, where's the rosé?
I love to see that as a rosé.
They do make one.
Seriously?
They do make one. Yes, that's what we started with.
Okay,
You missed it,
well,
but you can finish it.
Catch you up.
But
We'll leave you a taste.
They do make a rosé.
It's good.
Yeah.
That would be.
I think this is a little bit more delicious, but the rosé it's chuggable.
Well, rosé, yeah.
Well, we got one more bottle coming.
We got,
Yes. My favorite one.
Your
Say
favorite
the
so
least.
far?
Oh,
Oh wow.
This is your
Yeah.
favorite
well,
one?
my favorite.
Is it because of the
the
story?
Reds, of the Reds.
Okay.
No, I I love Puglia Salento, these conversation wines, the Primitivos, the Negromaros, that's my
your
stuff.
thing. That's your
my
thing.
That's my thing.
The
And the story doesn't hurt. I love her. She's doing a great thing. And the whole wine revolution.
Yeah.
So what's the producer
It's
name
great.
on this?
So it's Quale. When she made this wine, she made it with starting this wine revolution in mind,
Okay.
taking the profits from the wine and putting it towards certain charities, making sure that that farmers are getting fair pay for the hard work that they do in these vineyards. So she's a rebel winemaker's daughter
Yeah.
that took her share of
The vineyard.
the vineyard and turned it into this lovely project. And the wine's great.
And it seems it's like it's all recycled materials. I think it's biodynamic, right?
It's biodynamic. Yep.
So it's all of the buzzwords.
Yes.
All the
Yes.
buzzwords. Can you explain biodynamic a little bit for the audience and listeners? Because that's a newer
It is
trend.
Well, it's a practice that's been going on
Sure.
forever and ever.
But it's starting to be
It's
advertised.
starting to come to light for many of us Americans. But it's
Can I see her ID?
It's operating under the the standards of farming along with the universe, along with the motion of the moon, the motion of the earth, and doing things in those right times, as the pagans did. There's a proper time to harvest, a proper time to water, all the way down to a proper time to drink a certain wine or eat a certain food, and it's all about the revolving of the planets.
Well, wine being it is just
It's
agriculture,
alive.
right?
Yeah.
It's a farming product at its core. That's really what it comes down to. Is like you said, those vineyard workers every day making sure, hey, there's pests on
Yes.
here, we got to deal with this. There's a
Yes.
drought, we got to deal with this. There's fungus, we got to deal with this. It's an agricultural product, and you really do have to respond to the nature that you're growing it in, whether it be Sonoma or Italy or France, Australia, wherever. You have different battle every day,
Absolutely.
and being able to have that focus on the land and the environment that you grow in is one of the things that I personally love a lot about wine. Is that it's to the core. This is the earth that we grow it in. This is our land,
Yes.
and we sharing it with the rest of the world. So that's a beautiful
and getting
thing.
the best out of it that you can.
And not faking it with we're going to add a bunch of purple dye to it and over oak it. And no, you're just lying to people, right?
Just cheating.
That's cheating.
So this is a Italian wine.
Yes.
What's the grape? What's the varietal?
There's Primitivo, Negromaro, Merlot, and Syrah.
Cool. I was like Primitivo.
And what part of
I do
Italy?
too.
Zinsdale,
I do too.
as you- for the
Salento.
layman.
Salento.
Salento,
So that's
yep.
where is that on the boot?
In the heel of the boot.
heel of the boot.
Yep. So really, really, really hot. It's getting ocean breezes from each side, which is nice. But that Mediterranean, that salty sea air,
What part of Italy are we talking about? Did you say?
the boot, Salento.
Oh, okay.
That's where many of the best Primitivos
Sure.
come from.
Further south.
And Negromaro.
They need the heat.
That-
Primitivo
they need the heat. Yeah.
You can
Yeah,
tell I haven't been
just-
dumping because I'm starting to slur my words. You
I
need the-
you know, it's weird. I dumped the first two. I forgot they dumped
everything else. Yeah. So it's going to be a bit for the gig.
Yep, we gotta be good for remembering the words.
This is interesting and unique. And
Two things just blindly. I probably would have actually said it's Zinfandel, so I would have been wrong. Primitivo. And I think I would have actually said that it's Italian though.
why is that?
Just has nice acid, nice tannin. It seems like it's a perfect food wine with that pizza that's sitting over there, taunting me.
How's the pizza, Chuck? We'll find out soon. Yeah, this is killer. And like you said, super balanced, not high anything. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
That's why they kind of call these the conversation wines. You can drink it, you don't need food, and most of those conversation wines are coming out of that area. But yeah, it's the bottle you drink while you're cooking.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I agree with that. It's a fun like prep wine.
Kick off the party.
Kick off the party wine. Yeah.
And again, is this what are we $15 ish? What is this?
Yes,
at?
15.
It's very affordable and high quality for what we're drinking.
Yes. And also knowing that it's making a difference and it's at a good cause
Totally.
too. So yes. Thank you.
Rosé.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
I didn't bring my saber.
Well,
sorry.
we don't
This
have
is-
the time
this
for
is-
this. Is this Rosé Bubbles?
It
Yes.
is.
Oh,
Yes,
man.
and
listeners,
this is a surprise for me too. I have never had this. Here, I'll let you have the linen. I'll let you pop it.
So I concur with you guys making him bring out a sparkling rosé. Thank you. I don't like to start any show without having enough sparkling rosé.
Actually, so as a trend in the wine world of 2016, more men drink rosé than women.
And I started that trend. Thank you very much.
And that was a
And
great
20
decorking over there, Jonathan. That was
Thank you.
top notch.
20% too. 20% of the entire world's consumption of rosé is coming from the States right now.
From Wisconsin.
From
this table. And again, you're welcome.
from all of the states, which I thought was interesting. 20% of the entire world.
We're
That's a lot.
We're not afraid.
That's a lot.
That is really interesting. Rosé has seen a huge
Huge.
upswing in the last 5 years or so.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, when you get back to a microphone, what are we drinking?
Actually, Helena, you tell us what we're drinking.
This is a surprise, actually. This was something that was given to me from one of my grape vendors because she knew that this was happening. And it's a musical label. It's the piano keys. If you read on the top there, it says Reserva de la Musica. So for some reason, this popped into her head, and she just wanted to share it with us. And I actually just got it as a surprise yesterday, so I haven't tried it. I don't know anything about it.
Garnacha.
It's a cava.
Ooh.
Interesting. So
It's a fun
Spain.
biscuity.
We're talking Spain here.
Oh, this is good.
This is beautiful. I don't drink enough cava in my life.
It's a great alternative to champagne.
It is
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is interesting. Garnacha, as a grape, I think is super
Underrated.
underappreciated.
Absolutely.
Because you can get killer Garnachas for $10. And it's something that could, like you said, a Tuesday, pounder.
Yes.
Absolutely somewhere to look that is overlooked too often. So
I noticed Rosé Bubbles came out and the whole wine bar started to walk over here, stealing my Rosé Bubbles, and I don't think so. Well, that one stays up here. Oh,
So that is interesting because cava is usually a mix of multiple different grapes. So this is a straight Garnacha. Which is really interesting. So thank you for bringing this out. Do you need the bottle?
it's a cool label.
Absolutely.
What's the producer's name again? One more time?
Jane Ventura.
Jane Ventura.
Or is that pronounced differently?
It does have the
It has an accent
The-
over
the
the
accent.
E.
I got a D- in Spanish, so you don't want to ask me. That's like a check minus. F plus, check minus, same thing. And what's the price on this bottle here that just made its way to our
Same,
table?
15.
15? You are
This
killing
is a
it.
$15 wine.
Yes.
I'll take a case of this too.
All right.
He's got dibs. So, Helena, I hear
Yes.
you're moving
I am
to
moving.
Arizona.
Yes.
Moving on in the wine business.
Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson's a fun little place.
It's a great little place.
Yeah.
Definitely want to stay in the wine world. What I'm going to do, I have no idea yet. But
So this is
I'll find something.
Well, good luck to you.
Flying by the seat of my pants.
Wow.
I know.
Going for it.
I'm just going for it.
I'm kind of
You
jealous.
only
You know what you need
what
is
am I supposed to
a
do?
Wisconsin summer home and a Tucson winter home.
Well, that's the goal.
Gotcha.
Long-term goal.
That's the
10-year plan.
long-term goal. Yeah. Yeah.
Smart.
I was always meant to be a snowbird.
Yeah.
I know it.
I am too.
I know it.
So, and Jonathan,
Yeah.
you're taking over.
That's correct.
Are you excited
me
about
luck.
having to buy wine for this place?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Cool.
Yeah.
What's your background? We didn't really get to talk to you too much. You were working hard.
Yeah, I was pouring wine, I guess, to the extent that's
No
hard
more wine.
work.
It's Jonathan's time.
Been bartending for about 15 years. I'm from Appleton. I worked in Milwaukee for quite a bit, mostly just beer and shot bartending. I moved out to California. I lived in Berkeley and San Francisco, and that's where I got first into craft cocktails and
First
spirits.
into crack.
I thought that's where I first got into crack.
No, crack
AKA
is
wine.
No, crack is a recent thing. I'm actually just discovering crack now.
Came back home
exactly,
for that.
Craft cocktails. Yeah. So
That's a different podcast.
exactly.
Crack Wars. It's on Tuesdays.
Like and subscribe. So once in California, just a hop, skip, and a jump from the Russian River, Napa, and Sonoma valleys. So we'd go up there, 2 or
that's how
3
you got
times
hooked?
a month. Got hooked on wine. Worked in some nicer restaurants and bars with really legit wine programs.
Cool.
And I just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah.
You made us all jealous. Thanks.
Except for the crack bit.
Oh, I thought because of the crack bit.
I'll skip that in my life. Thank you. So if listeners is ever traveling through Appleton, Wisconsin, come take a visit to the Refuge Lounge. Jonathan will be here pouring wines for you. Thank you again to the Refuge Lounge for having us crash your party here today. Thank you, Helena and Jonathan, for joining us today. You can rate and review us on iTunes, as Jonathan said. Don't rate and review Crack Wars. That's a different podcast, sister podcast. Follow us on Stitcher, iTunes, any of those things, Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff. You can follow the Refuge Lounge on Facebook and Instagram at Refuge Lounge Appleton. And that does it for Wine Wars this week. Until next time, please remember,
It's just grape juice.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wine Wars.